Hello, I'm Dr. Rosie Kuhn, and this series is called "I Want to Be a Better Coach." And the reason that I'm creating this video series is because, well, I've been a coach for over 24 years. I've been training people to be coaches for about 20 years, and I find that the way that I coach and the experience that I have could be valuable to people who may be looking for ways to be a better coach or more effective coach. So I thought, wouldn't it be fun to create a place where you could ask questions. There's a form below in the description section where you can ask questions or share your challenges that you're facing as a coach, and that I could give you my perspective and my orientation about coaching and how to empower yourself and your clients to be more effective in the world. So that's the plan. My background was in therapy initially, as a marriage and family therapy, and I worked in recovery. I've worked in domestic violence a little bit, and also in spiritual guidance. And all of that was before I became a coach. So I've got about 40 some years of experience to bring to these podcasts series, videos, whatever we want to call them. So if you have a specific question, I'd love to hear what it is, and just either fill in the form below or add a comment. It would be great. I will add that if these issues have to do with if you're facing a crisis where you need help right away, it's really good to call 911. If you've got issues that are challenging to you, that is more than what I can offer you here, then I will most likely refer you to get support from someone else. But if it's a matter of what I can answer here on these videos, and or through potential coaching or training that you might be looking for in the future, I'm happy to do that. But I can't help with specific mental health issues. So just know that from the start. And so if you need physical or emotional, spiritual, mental health immediately, please call 911, and please take care of yourself that way. All right, let's get started with the first question. So I had asked a few people if they would provide some questions for me. These are people that I know as coaches, and people that I've trained and actually supervised as coaches. So here's what we've got. So first of all, Andrew has been coaching for, he says, 4 years. And he says, my client, Craig, talks a lot. He hardly takes a breath. I don't know how to interrupt him without feeling guilty. He'll think I don't care. He might feel offended. I can't even begin to coach him because I can't get a word in. How do you handle clients who talk a lot? Andrew, that's a really great question. I've had people like that in my practice, and sometimes I still have people in my practice like that. And it's you'll see, perhaps if you follow and listen to a number of these videos, you'll see that there's a consistency in what I have to say. So first of all, that your client Craig talks a lot is something that a lot of people do, and a lot of people come into coaching or therapy thinking that their job is to talk, and that we as practitioners will support them and interrupt them or do whatever we need to do to help them. So if we don't interrupt, if we don't do what we're supposed to do, all they know to do pretty well is to talk. And there are those people who talk because it's something that they've learned to do for whatever reasons. It becomes a strategy that they may be practicing since they were a little kid. We don't know. But what I have to listen for, and what I want you to listen for, is where that fear, perhaps a fear of, like I said, if I interrupt him, I feel guilty. Now, number one, I feel guilty is an issue, your issue, and not your client's. That I'm afraid he'll be offended, or he won't like me, or what did you say? He thinks I don't care. That again is an issue that belongs to you. Those are where you have fear and where that fear is interfering with you being an empowered coach and thinking partner. I think about ourselves as a coach, as a thinking partner. So wherever my stuff interferes with me being able to do what I do, that's my stuff to take care of. And I can take that to a coach. I can take that to whoever my support person is, going, look, I've got these issues with me, and that gets in the way of me being effective as a client, as a coach. That's partly why I'm doing these videos, is to help you see, oh man, I'm really afraid of that too. I let that get in my way, or I let that stop me. So where we say things like, I let that stop me, that's our stuff and not our clients. So the more that we can attend to, here's where I get afraid, here's where I'm unsure, here's where I'm, they might not come back. Those are fears that belong to you, and that can interfere with how effective you are with your client. So I had a similar experience many years ago with a client. I'll call her Melinda, and I make up these names, so it's not related to anybody in particular, a particular name for a person. And Melinda would talk and talk and talk and talk and talk, and I found myself really afraid to interject and to interrupt. And then there was a day that I was struggling with this, and I actually talked to my coach about it and said, hey, and my coach said, yeah, when you're stopped by that, you are not effective as a coach. When you're letting your client get away with talking and talking and talking, that's your issue. Well, I've already said that to you. So I had to look at this differently. And what I came up with was this: my client is paying me to be the most effective and valuable for them, so that they can move forward in their life the way they want to. So if I'm acting out of fear, then they're paying me to be in the midst of my own stuff rather than being the most effective coach. So when I got clearer about my intention is to bring most value to my clients, then I started to think about it differently. And then I started to interrupt Melinda. So before I say that, though, I'm going to get confused here on myself because I'm thinking two things at one time. So number one is, what's the value that I'm bringing? And if they're paying me, then I need to pay attention to that. The second thing is the intention to listen to my client in a way that's going to be helpful for them. So I realized too that I was afraid that Melinda would leave if I interrupted her. And the other thing is, I realized that I'm interrupting. When we interrupt as a coach, as part of our profession, the question is, are you interrupting because you're mean or you're rude, or that you don't care about this person? And the answer to that most likely is no, I'm interrupting them because their talking isn't allowing us to have a conversation that's going to move them forward the way they want to. So I had to also get clear about that I'm interrupting not because I'm mean or rude or I don't care. I'm interrupting because I do care. And when we can get clear about the reason and the intention of our actions as a coach, our interventions, if you will, then I can get clearer about, hey, I'm interrupting because I want to be of value and because I care about you. And my listening shifts from the story, if you will, of what the client is up to what's really going on here, and how is this empowering my client or maybe disempowering my client. So when I was able to get clear about this, my value is being effective as a coach, and my value is in interrupting because I care, and seeing that, then I was able to act accordingly to those principles and those values. And so with Melinda, I said, hey, I'm interrupting. I want to stop because I'm curious about what this is about and where you're going and how I can be more effective with you. And she didn't like that, actually. And she didn't find value in me being a coach per se and coaching as an inquiry. She wanted to just tell her story in a sense, vent. And that didn't work for me. That's not, I'm not in the business of coaching to help people vent and nothing more. I'm in the business of coaching to support and empower people and moving beyond just venting in our relationship and our conversations. So Melinda left my practice, and you know what? I was okay with that because I learned so much, and I realized the value and my intention of really wanting to empower people who want to empower themselves. They want to move forward. And at this point in Melinda's life stages, she wasn't ready for what was next for her. So again, when you have clients that talk a lot, be clear about what's your intention in letting them talk. Are you letting them talk because you feel a need for them to talk and you want to support that? Or is this because you're afraid to face some things, be confronted by what's showing up, and you might have to say, hey, wait, stop, time out. That's the difference. I have a client I work with, I'll call him Casey, and Casey comes to our sessions, and basically he is with me to get support, but by telling his story, by telling what's going on. And my agreement with him and my knowing is that's what we're doing together. I'm not letting it happen because I'm afraid of something. I'm in this relationship with him the way that he needs it, because that's the way that supports him. So the difference is I know the difference between when I'm supporting and listening to his stories from that intention, as opposed to the intention of avoiding what scares me, like they might go away or they may not like me, which is a big issue for a lot of coaches. All right. I hope that helps, Andrew. The second question is kind of the opposite of that. And this comes from Lisa. And Lisa's been coaching a long time. And she trained with me many years ago and then has been in supervision with me for a couple of years now. And as she's moving through this process of supervision, she's becoming a much more effective coach. She didn't even know the possibilities of how effective she could be and how present she could be until she started to really connect with, hey, I want some supervision and mentoring around my coaching. And so the question that she came up with, Lisa says, help, I can't stop telling people what to do. I can't stop myself. Do I have a problem? I know better and I'm committed, but I can't stop myself. So quite often, and it's a sense, there's the two sides of the same coin, like what we're talking about with Andrew, is I'm afraid of what's going to show up if I stop this conversation. In a sense, there's sometimes a void or a silence or something else. And I don't know how to be with that. So I'm going to let the client talk. And the opposite side of the coin is the coach that says, I got to talk because I don't know what's going to show up if I stop talking. So it's kind of an interesting dilemma. And probably most of us coaches will face both sides of that coin, and perhaps. And even though we're taught the difference between coaching as an inquiry and asking questions, we also add in sometimes some teaching or some educating or some experiences, personal experience or other people's experiences that might support our client. But when we get caught in that pattern and we can't not do that pattern, like Lisa's saying, or not do the pattern of not interrupting as in Andrew, then we're able to go, wait a second, this is something that I don't have choice about. Like Lisa, I can't stop myself. And when we know that we can't stop ourselves, that's a really good indication that it's a pattern that we've learned. It's a habit. It's a way of being in the world with our clients, perhaps otherwise, where we have to be the teacher or the advisor or the counselor. And we know as coaches that our job is to empower our clients to empower themselves. We want to give them the room to see and hear and listen. Again, as a thinking partner, our job is to listen with them so they can see, oh, wow, I see how I'm thinking about this. And that's what gets me the outcome I have. Oh, I see how I'm doing this. Oh, I'm questioning this, or I see where I need to practice this or strengthen this. So we bring our clients that space where they can look at that. But if we're talking all the time and we're teaching, we're not empowering our clients. We're just in that state of they'll do what they do with our information. But this is how some of us operate. I know, like I said, I know I do a lot of teaching in my sessions, and I can't remember the fellow's name, wonderful person. His coaching company is called Accomplishment Coaching. I can't remember his name right now, but he would say, you know, if you're going to teach, say to your client, hey, I'm taking off my coach hat, I'm putting on my teaching hat. So I'm going to tell you something, and then I'm going to take that hat off and put on my coaching hat. And I found that really helpful for me to be able to make the distinction when I'm coaching and when I'm teaching. So again, coming back to Lisa, I can't stop. This habit, this pattern is something to begin to, if you think of a lot of threads that are all kind of wound together and into this, I can't get unstuck from this pattern, then we start to look at in supervision and or coaching, what is that that's the underlying source of that talking. Like, why are you talking so much? And it's not the question, why are you talking so much? But it's like, wow, what's coming up that has that talking happen? That's the way I like to see, because there's something inside, not just logical, but a whole personal thing that's happening that has that speaking happen, that talking. And when we can stop and start to look at that, what's the energy or the anxiousness or the fear that's underlying, much like with, again, Andrew saying, I don't want to stop the client. It's like, I don't want to stop talking. There's an underlying fear or anxiety or an underlying something that has us talk. And so if we know that and get clearer about that, then we can go, oh, I don't have to. We're a choice. But when we're not a choice, we're not a choice. And then we're not effective as a coach. So one of the things I do, if I am talking a lot, and I'll do this as an example right now, if I'm teaching something and I get caught in whatever I'm teaching, but if I'm teaching something, I will, when I'm done teaching, I'll say to my client, so what happened to you while you're listening to me? Or what did you notice while you were listening? Or what showed up while you were listening to me? Now, that means I can do a piece of teaching and talking, but I'm really clear that the most important part of what I'm doing here is to support and empower my client. So I say, what showed up in you as you're hearing me say this? Because my client is having an experience, a direct experience within themselves. I can't see that, but I know they're doing that because I know what it's like being me when I'm listening to material or information. Something's happening. And so when I can ask my question to my client, what's happening as you're hearing me say this? They're now able to go in and ask themselves, wow, what was that experience? What was that like for me? How did I respond? And sometimes it's like, I kind of spaced out, or I got really emotional, or I felt some anger, or I felt confused. Like they're having an experience inside. And that's where we want to go, okay, so tell me more about that. Because we're getting connected and engaged with who your client is. And that's where the real coaching happens, when we go, wow, what was that happened? So that's one of the things that a tool that I use, and you might try it on, is if you find yourself talking, you might, or you're talking directly, specifically and intentionally, then you say it to your client, what showed up in you as you heard me say that? Or what did you notice when you were listening to me? Or what was happening? That kind of question where you're curious about who they are. And that helps, again, stimulate an engaged conversation and not just a one-way sort of transactional thing. So that's really, really helpful. I was going to say one more thing about that. Can't think of it, but it may come up later. So again, if you find yourself talking, much like, again, as I said earlier with Andrew, ask yourself, my client is paying me to be the most effective. And if I'm talking to take care of myself, but I'm not really listening to my client, I might want to change that. And that's where you become more intentional in your coaching. And as you become more intentional in your coaching, you become more effective, truly. And quite often, there's a thing that says, I say anyway, the more you work on your personal issues, the personal stuff, your business will grow. if you're not working on what's personal, where you get afraid or back off or resist, that's going to affect how you be effective as a coach, but also in your business. Just saying. Okay, the third question I have is from Jennifer. She says, a client of mine makes most of her decisions from a place of fear and anxiety. It's difficult to guide her to look at her circumstances from outside her feelings because she's stuck in this spiral and all she sees is the most negative viewpoint. I can't, and she says, I have says that her client says, I can't for about 100 reasons. I want to be a better coach. So how can I see this differently? So it's a really, again, people have patterns and habits, and they have perspectives that is, in a sense, very normal. Like there's a statistic that 80% of what we think and the way that we view the world and perceive the world, 80% of it is negative in nature. So 80%, that's a lot. And that's not just Harry or Margaret or Bill or Susan. That's all of us. I know I had to confront that part of myself that was negative all the time, 80% of the time, and then found those moments of not negative. And as I knew that, and I could see 80% of me is negative. Do I want to live that way? Then I could begin to ask myself that question and go, I don't want to live that way. So that gave me an opportunity to see how I could create more moments of positivity versus all this negativity. So I say that in terms of with Jennifer's client, that like most of us, she comes from a fear-based or anxious-based or negative perspective in making decisions. Like, in a sense, how can I keep the worst from happening? In coaching, we want to empower people to empower themselves to have a great life. I have my magic wand, and I use this quite a lot with clients because quite often people will say, well, much like what Jennifer's saying is, her client is making decisions from a negative place, and that place, like, how can I avoid the worst to happen? And that's a paradigm that we live in. We live in a paradigm of fear and limitedness. We talk about lack and scarcity, and I can't, and if only I had this, and if only I had that, and they have it, but I don't. Those kinds of things. That's all lack and fear-based. And this kind of coaching that I do, what I call transformational coaching, comes in from a different paradigm where we are 100% potentiality. Your client is 100% potentiality. You are 100% potentiality. Now, to coach from that requires a paradigm shift in you, and it requires a paradigm shift inevitably for your client. And this is how my model of coaching and transformational coaching, I think, differs from a lot of people who call themselves transformational coaches, because they don't look at the paradigm within which they're coaching, within which we're all immersed in this fear-based, lack-based paradigm. But if we come into 100% potentiality, then me as a fairy godmother can speak to you as the fairy godmother and say, what is it you really want? And in the moment that I pull out my magic wand with all the little glitters, this is something you can get on Amazon or many other places. You might have your own fairy godmother wand or magic wand, but this one a friend of mine gave me. But when I pull it out, even on the phone, there's a shift from fear and limitedness and can't and impossible to, wow, this is really what I want. And in that moment, my client shifts from that limitedness to, here's what I really want. And they go into a state of spark. It sparks joy whenever we, pull out the magic wand, or if there's a shooting star, those moments of wonder, that's a shift in paradigm. And we're outside the fear in those moments. And the more that we can be in that state, this is science now. This is physics, science, quantum field, quantum physics, manifestation, law of attraction. It's all what I'm talking about right here. Is in this paradigm, everything is possible. And so I'll say to my client, what is it you want? And my job is to empower you to empower yourself to have that. And even in those words, they still know that sense of elation and fearless, anything is possible potentiality. And so I asked that question a lot. What is it that you really want? So that takes the individual out of that state of fear and angst, at least even momentarily, and they get a glimpse of, wow, there is something possible beyond this fear-based, anxious place. So to coach to that requires you, Jennifer, and your clients, but mostly you as a coach. We are, in a sense, the change we want to see in our clients. We are the ones that have to know this place in order to coach to this place. Who was it? Mahatma Gandhi. Once there's a story that that some woman came to his door, knocked on his door, and she had her 8-year-old son with her. And she said to Mahatma Gandhi, my son needs to get off sugar, and I want you to help him get off sugar. And Gandhi said, come back in 3 weeks. And so the woman came back 3 weeks, and then Mahatma Gandhi worked with this little boy, and things shifted for the little boy. And the mother said, why did I have to wait for 3 weeks? And Mahatma Gandhi said, to get the boy off the sugar, I had to get myself off the sugar first. And so that's what we're up to as coaches. And you might not like hearing that, like, oh my God, I don't want to do that level of work. Like, okay, you don't have to do that level of work. This is about, I want to be a better coach, a more effective coach. And so when we can see where we're limiting or stopping or dismissing our own growth and potential, then we're going to be that with our clients. We're going to not be able to move them in the direction of their fullest potential because we're saying no to our own fullest potential. So that's the dilemma that partly I want to speak to for us as coaches who want to be more effective, but it's scary to do our own personal work or to see like, wow, that's where I'm limited. That's where I'm challenged. That's where I have dilemmas. And we all have those dilemmas. We all have those challenges because we're humans before we're coaches. We're humans before we're anything but what we choose to be as a mom or a minister or a priest or a sponsor or anybody who's in supporting other people. First of all, we have our own issues that we're challenged by. Okay, so Jennifer, to support this client in moving out of this spiraling, this is now a stake in the ground. It's really important for you to be clear, like, okay, I know there's this place outside of this paradigm of limited scarcity and fear. And I'm going to hold the stake for my client. And I'm going to be curious with her about where she is actually able to be in a place of spontaneity, where she is in those places of making choices from something other than fear and anxiety. And so, but I first, or you first, have to come into that willingness to move in the direction of there's a positivity here and a potentiality here, and that's where you want to bring your client. So your client is in a pattern and a habit, and we can even call it an addiction. Like when we don't have a choice, it's automatic. We want to look at that and go, okay, that's a pattern, and we want to be able to help our clients see it as a pattern. We want to say, hey, notice when that pattern comes up, and when are you more likely to make those choices out of fear and anxiety than when you're able to make those choices without fear and anxiety. I have a client that I was speaking to today. I'll call her Maureen, and she's like, "Oh, I get so frenetic. I have to go on a trip, and I'm packing, and I'm just in this freneticness, and I can't get out." And frenetic is where she goes. Sorry, I had an interruption. Ah, we're still recording. I don't know what happened to the camera. Hang on a second. I'm switching. Okay, now I'm on a different camera. I have 2 cameras hooked up. And so now you're getting a little picture because my phone was doing something. Sorry. So bottom line is if you can help your client, if you can hold that space of a place other than, okay, so I was talking about my client, Maureen. Let me see if I can hook back into my other camera. Sorry. Let's see. Ta-da! Okay. So if we can, so Maureen goes into this freneticness, and that in a sense is where she feels it's safe and in control, but she's now able to notice it and see it. So a lot of coaches, we want to fix and heal and tell people what to do and how to do it different and problem solve. But this quality of coaching is really about being with people where they're at, helping them see where they're at, seeing how they got here, not in terms of long past therapeutic conversations, but just in conversation, and to go, here's where you're operating from, this fear-based, scared little girl place, and you have the capacity, because we talked about it. I said, where do you spontaneously and effortlessly take care of things without going into panic and frenzy? And she can tell me, oh, when I do this, and here's how I do that, and here's why I make those decisions, and it's effortless. So we go, isn't that interesting? Here you go into frenzy, and here you don't. Like, how do you choose? How do you decide? I use the expression quite often. How do you choose to choose what you choose? So these are conversations that are not a fix-it problem-solving issue. This is a conversation that unfolds over time. We create awareness in our clients. We say, notice when that shows up. Notice when that frenzy, notice when that anxiety, notice when that fear is what's driving the decision-making. And again, we're not wanting that to change overnight. The transformation does not happen. If we look at the caterpillar, and going into a chrysalis, becoming a butterfly, that isn't an overnight kind of thing. We kind of somehow expect that to happen with our clients if we're doing transformational coaching. It's not that. We're helping people see their process and the progress they're making and acknowledging the progress. Like, wow, look at, you now have an awareness of that you didn't have before, and you're willing to be in that. That's courageous. So we help them through that process. So again, no fixing or healing or converting, and that's what we think we're supposed to be doing. But this is about sitting with and being life coaches. Life coaches is a whole process of unfolding, not just life coaching. Let's get what you want. It's up to you. You get to do what you want to as a coach, and how you want to coach is up to you. That's part of my message. Is I'm here giving the information I have based on my direct experience, personally and professionally, and what I've learned from other teachers and other experiencers. And I'm just putting it out here. And I encourage you to empower yourself to make the choices you make that are best for you, not what I think is best for you. What's best for you? And when you can do that for yourself, then you're going to be able to empower other people to do that for themselves. And that's what it's all about. So I think that's it for today, those 3 questions. And if you liked what happened here, if you found value, please give me a thumbs up. If you're interested, please subscribe and receive notifications. I'll be providing these every Thursday. They'll go up. So you should see that every Thursday. And in the descriptions below, you'll see some other offerings that I have. Like, my website has a lot of blogs and videos and books that I've written. I have a course on YouTube called Inward Bound Bootcamp for Self-Transformation, and it talks a lot about a lot of this information that you can get, and is helpful just for people, whether you're a coach or not, but it can be really helpful for coaches as well. And I have some other offerings there as well, and the form down there that you can fill out if you have specific questions you'd like me to answer on this series. I think that's pretty much it. If you are interested in coaching or training or anything else, you can reach me through rosie@theparadigmshifts.com. Just go to my website and you'll find me. All right. Thanks again. Big hugs. Blessings to you. Bye-bye.